Second son, Naftali, was a yeshiva high school boy. It was actually the last day of 11th grade. He was 16 and a half years old. And we spoke to him like noonish. For the last couple of days, they were on a field trip for the end of the year, and which means we have a lot of photographs from the last 24 hours. That evening, he and a classmate, Gilad Shayer, chose to come home. That evening, he actually sent us a message that he's on his way home, and took us about an hour to see that, and we responded with, "Oh, great, we're expecting you," and we went to sleep. And next thing we know, it was 3:30 at night. There's a policeman at our door. Turns out that this family we never knew before, Gilad's family, was expecting Gilad, and Gilad didn't show up. And eventually the friends said they left school together, and we were like thrust into this ordeal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Meaningful People podcast. This week we had the honor, myself and Momo, to speak to Rachelle Fraenkel, all the way from Eretz Yisrael. You may know her from her son Naftali Fraenkel, who was kidnapped and murdered at the hands of terrorists with two other of his friends, 2014. You know, the whole world rallied together and davened the safe return for those boys, but unfortunately, it did not happen. We sat down with her, we discussed that story and what she's going through now with this current war, how she dedicated herself to helping other mothers who have kids who are hostages, who have lost children in this war. And it's an important conversation. She's such a beacon of light. She always has been. And, you know, I really, really hope that you can gain a lot from this conversation as much as I did. You know, what's going on in Eretz Yisrael is so tragic. And the world's response to it is even more tragic, but we're not going to get into that right now over here. This platform is about spreading light, positivity, and very, very honored that we had the opportunity to speak to Rachelle Fraenkel and present to you this episode. So here it is. You are listening to the Meaningful People podcast.
The podcast featuring our nation's most impactful, influential,
and meaningful people. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for giving us your time. I know that it's a crazy time and you're extremely busy going to Shiva homes and trying to help people through this time. So thank you for giving us some of your time and hopefully it will do a lot for our viewers. I wanna start off.
I'll just say that it's an honor to be with you, and just doing what everybody else is doing. You know, people all over the country. We're running from funeral to funeral, from shiva to shiva, and sitting with families of the missing and the kidnapped. That's what we're all doing.
Right, 100%. I happens to be. I reached out to a woman. Her name is Miriam Peretz, and
Sure.
I wanted to have a conversation with her as well. And you know, the voice note I got back was like, she is going from Shiva homes from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. She has not stopped for a second. And like, that's what Klal Yisrael does. Like, that's what we do in times like this. We help out everyone we can. So really thank you for all that you're doing. I want to, you know, start off by, you know, going back just a decade, bring us back to 2014 when your journey in this parsha began. If you could just take us back in time, what was going on June, and all the while, if you could tell us a little bit about your son, Naftali Alav Shalom.
I must say I feel weird speaking about myself when right now, currently, so many people are in anguish and pain and despair and grief. The only reason I will do it is because I think it has relevance, both for some credibility to the things I'll say, but also because literally some of the people are in the same scene with some significant differences. And so it's weird to be telling a personal story when you know, just now everybody's so deep into this. So
And
my second
maybe
son, yeah.
maybe I'll just interject to empower you to know that in times like this, when people offer nechama one to another, sometimes knowing where that nechama is coming from is so critical in being able to accept and receive the messages, because someone can see something in a book, or someone can see a clip, and someone can even hear a speaker talk really beautifully about concepts that are emes la'amitai. But sometimes a person's heart, as you mentioned, is too closed or too cold or too broken to allow that message in. And knowing what you've been through, knowing what your life experience is, knowing the way that you've adopted these message in your life and how real it is for you, is so important for people to open their hearts and allow the light that you're spreading into theirs. So thank you so much for sharing with us your personal story.
I accept that. I'll just say that I think the relevance is not only to the grieving and broken and anxious. It is also back to Klal Israel because of the role they played in our story and the role that everybody could play today. But let's go back. My second son, Naftali, was a yeshiva high school boy. It was actually the last day of 11th grade. He was 16 and a half years old. And we spoke to him like noonish. For the last couple of days, they were on a field trip for the end of the year, and which means we have a lot of photographs from the last 24 hours. And that evening, they was supposed to come back the next morning, but that evening, he and a classmate, Gilad Shayer, chose to come home. That evening, he actually sent us a message that he's on his way home. And took us about an hour to see that, and we responded with, "Oh, great, we're expecting you," and we went to sleep. And next thing we know, it was 3:30 at night. There's a policeman at our door. Turns out that this family we never knew before, Gilad's family, was expecting Gilad, and Gilad didn't show up. And eventually the friends said they left school together, and we were like thrust into this ordeal. What, of course, to make things short, what happened was that within very few hours, like a couple of hours, we already knew that the last location of their phones was in the Hebron area, which is the opposite direction from our home. And we understood this is a terror situation. We understood that it's a hostage situation. And shortly after, we also learned that there's a third boy, Yalifrach, that is two years older than them. And he was also on the same bus stop, and he went on the same car. Actually, we learned later, a car with people dressed in, titiot and yarmulkes, and with a radio program that was like a religious Jewish program, like a Thursday night before Shabbat. And they stopped next to the bus stop and they offered them a ride, and the three of them went on the ride. How do we have so much information? From various channels, including the recording of a call Gilad made to an emergency police member. So we know some of the things that happened in the car. But from there on, there were 18 days of frantic search, of anxiety, of, you don't sleep, you don't eat. And on the other hand, from, unprecedented support, unity, a hug that only Am Yisrael is capable of giving. And many things happened during that time, specifically Operation Shuvu Banim, which was dubbed in the IDF. Every war has an English name and a Hebrew name, so it was called My Brother's Keeper. And that turned out to be very, very significant, because that was the major sentiment. In the Torah, it's with a question, am I, a rhetorical question, am I my brother's keeper? But here it was with an exclamation mark. And though 18 days later they were found, it turned out they were murdered shortly after the kidnapping and buried. And the whole hostage situation was turned out to be even over after they weren't alive. This was Hamas, okay? It happened to have been Hamas Hebron, but the funding came through Qatar to Gaza. So it's the same route from Gaza to Hebron. It's the same Hamas. And it's the same, I can't call it culture. It's Amalek.
Something that I remember, I was younger. Something I remember going on at that time happens to be my parents were in Israel at that time, and in fact, they went to your house before the boys were found. They sent me a picture with you, and it's a testament to the figure that you were in the world at that time. Is you were this beacon of light and emunah, and you still are, but you were the spokesperson for the boys, and more than that, you were just the emunah and the battery behind the achdus that was going on in Klal Yisrael at that time, and I'm sure that's not easy to do. I'm curious what triggered inside of you after hearing news like this, knowing the predicament that you were in, that you said, you know what, that's the role I'm going to adopt here. That's the direction we're going to go in.
So first of all, my English is more reasonable than the other two. I mean, from the six of us, the parents, I was more exposed because I can handle myself in English. My parents made Aliyah, I don't know, 65 years ago from New York. So that's a little bit more of the exposure. And of course, there was an emphasis on the mothers, but the fathers were exactly there. It's not, it's not on us. It's definitely not on me. But and anything that we did was totally out of this intuition of what's right to do at the moment. There was no point in time where we decided to take upon ourselves the role. I'll say that our very, very strong feeling is that if there was any light shining from us, it was a reflection of what we were receiving from Klal Yisrael. It was like holding up a mirror and saying, look who you are. Look what you're capable of. Look what's going on here. And it's a very, ambivalent place to be, because in a way you're close to losing your sanity and anxious, etc., etc. And on the other hand, there was a very clear sense within no time at all that something great is going on here, and that Klal Yisrael is expressing their true self, and people care, and people opened their hearts, and people prayed and rallied and sent us pieces of their hearts from all over Eretz Yisrael and the diaspora. And, I can speak for hours and hours and hours about the way people express their concern and care and love, and the way Israel knows how to hug you in such time.
I was going to double click on that term that you used as well. You said receiving hugs that only Am Yisrael are able to give. And I'm wondering, when you contemplate that hug, are there any specific people or instances or stories that stick out for you as receiving that hug?
So literally, I can speak of it for hours. Yeah, I mean, there are tons of stories, from the elderly lady that comes over to my home and says, I saw on television that you like purple, so here's a purple piece of jewelry. Now, it's so strange to get jewelry from a stranger, but she wanted to give me a piece of her heart. Soldiers came and gave us the beret that they walked 40 kilometers to receive, with a letter for Naftali when he comes back. The next day, Haredi soldiers from a special Haredi unit came and spoke the same language. they gave a letter and a sikat lochem. It's like a pin that you get for achievements and tons and tons of things, including communities and many communities that sent books full of mitzvot they collected in merit of the boys. I'll tell you. I'll tell you one story, and this community knows that I speak about them. They collected 1,000 mitzvot in merit of the boys. Okay, hello to Scottsdale, Arizona, and they at some point created a clip. Now, by the time the clip was out, it was already in memory of the boys. And I remember asking the rabbi, "Didn't people lose their motivation?" And he said, "On the contrary, they had greater motivation." And the rabbi there was saying, in the tape, we heard the terrorist say, "Put down your head, put down your head." And the rabbi said, this is a way to pick our head up strong. Okay. And a few months later, they showed me the clip. And after the clip, a lady walks over to me and she said, I didn't want to say this on the video, but the mitzvah I accepted upon myself was to date only Jews. And I said, whoa, for a 16-year-old kid, you have such an effect on generations. This goes on and on and on. I can tell you, like 1,000 stories. And really what I want to emphasize is, I don't know how people felt about it at the time. They did what their heart told them was the right thing. But for us, it was part of the framework that kept our sanity. This knowledge that we're not alone. That when people come over to you and they say, these are not only your boys, these are our boys. The knowledge that we have an extended family that all is concerned and cares and prays, that the names are known. And I'm saying this in the context of today. The numbers are overwhelming and nobody could do, 200 kidnapped and and the numbers of missing and so many, I'm afraid we'll get to 1,400, lost, and so many people grieving. I beg, don't leave them anonymous. Let's divide the names amongst the communities. Let's follow up with families, not only the high profile ones, also, and maybe Davka, the ones that, are, we hear less about. And there are people out there that know the names, that could reach the names. And there are other people that have the talent of being organizers and knowing how to make this work. It is so significant. These days I've been saying I feel a little bit funny, but I go places and people tell me, you don't know me, but I know you. And really, in the most honest way, I find myself answering, but it's not so. I do know you. You were with me in the worst time of my life. It's a real thing. It means so much. People thousands and thousands of miles away say, what do I matter? And you do matter. You make a difference. So yeah, I jumped from our story to today, but yes.
No, that's really beautiful. And it's an amazing perspective for anybody who's listening now, because obviously it's applicable to what's going on in the world right now. We'll be right back to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. But first, a word from our friends at Alpert and Associates. It's that Mar Cheshvan time, right? Not sure. It's just like No Yom Tovim. I might have this all covered financially, but maybe you don't. Maybe you got to double make sure that you have the knowledge that you need to make sure that you have this handled. It's maybe a time of year that you can, we're going to save money. We're going to make some more money and we're going to put some in the bank for savings for Timmy's college fund and for the car for our kid coming back from seminary, all those things. But you know what helps a lot? Having someone in your corner that knows finances, and that is Moshe Alpert. So make sure to give him a call at Alpert Associates at 718-644-1594. Yeah, I just gave you his cell phone number. You can call him and he'll answer, and you can schedule a free consultation. Or you can email him at alpertmoshe@gmail.com. He's there for you. He's there to help you with all your financial needs. That is Alpert and Associates. Give him a call. Now back to this episode. In regards, to your story, I don't know if this is the case. It might be it's easier to have that emuna betachon when you don't know yet, what the fate of the boys were. It was within those 18 days, you're still holding on hope. But after that news came, that unfortunately the boys were taken, and they were killed. What happened to you psychologically? Did that emuna increase, decrease? Did it affect the emuna side of you?
So, I remember during those days, people saying something about emuna. I was surprised because I didn't feel that I was saying anything about emuna. We were just, again, with our intuition. But sometimes acts, speak, louder than words. I do remember literally during those times saying, when people speak of a crisis of faith and under difficult circumstances, and I'm not judgmental to anybody. I can understand why a person would feel deserted and, where did all my prayers go, etc. To me, it felt irrational because before bad things were happening to other people and I was a believer and now something bad touched our life. So, what changed? I do remember experiencing my emunah from a very vulnerable place, from a very fragile place, from a very exposed place. It's you shed a lot of your paddings that we have in a modern age with all technology and all medicine, and you will all live happily ever after. And you're in these points in time where you're dealing with life and death and being so dependent and so vulnerable. That to me was a shiur be'emunah, being so exposed. I do want to say, and again, maybe also in today's context, that it has to do with the larger picture of how we view bitachon. In the world, there's a perspective of bitachon as anytime you're in the crossroads and you don't know what's going to happen, you should trust that everything will be wonderful because Hashem is going to take care of everything. And that's a very classical perception of bitachon, and very important one too. It's not the only one. Chazon Ish already said in his eyes it was a mistake, a big mistake, and he speaks very bluntly about it. The other perspective is anything can happen. Miracles beyond nature could happen, and nothing is beyond the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Ravo B'Ma'at. And that being given, Kadosh Baruch Hu is not in your pocket, and he's not, it doesn't work. He's not your employee, and you're not a prophet. You don't know what's going to happen. So the other way you would put bitachon is anything that happens in the world is from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and nothing is beyond the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you're hoping for the best. But it's not like only good things could happen, and we see it all the time. I'd say beyond that, there's something, especially being a Jew in the sovereign state of Israel. Okay, so in the circles I live in, we live here in feeling that some of the prophecies have already been fulfilled to a large extent. Kibbutz Galuyot, being a sovereign state in Eretz Yisrael, and the rest are on their way. Okay, so this is a process that is going in the right direction. And then when we have these times where it's obviously not a smooth ride up, there is great meaning to remembering the side of bitachon that says, I'm botach b'Hashem, I adhere to Hashem, just like a baby adhere to Gamul Aleimo, like a baby adhere to their mother, because that's their place in the world. Not because he's trying to receive something from the mother or achieve something from the mother, just because that's the right thing. That's the right place for me. In the Yov it says, Henik teleni lo ayachel. Even when he's hurting me, when he's slaughtering me, I adhere to him. I pray to him. So bitachon is not all optimism. Okay. it has different sides to it, and being a complete Jew is being able to hold the different sides of this equation.
I love the way you frame that. My neighbor here in North Woodmere, Yehuda Rozorsky, was in Eretz Yisrael for Yom Tif, and like a lot of Americans, had quite the journey returning to his home here in Chutz La'aretz. And he has a big family, Kanai, and his youngest child is, I think, maybe 6 or 7 weeks old. And I asked him, how was that, chaos with such a young baby? And he remarked, he said, in honesty, that child had the easiest time because it was just in the mother's arms, and the other kids who were more aware of what was happening, it was a bigger avodah. But for the 6-week-old baby, she was in her mother's arms, the same here, the same there. And I think Reb Chaim Shulevitz gave that mashal for emuna and bitachon. When our place is just in our Father in Heaven's hands, then it can really transcend circumstances. And it doesn't matter where we are and what's happening around us. We are in Hashem's hands, and we're cradled in that space.
Absolutely.
I recall Rabbi Pesach Krohn, he had said when this was going on, and I believe 2004, shortly after the news came out of the Patira of the boys, he said that, recording came out and they were able to hear that the boys were, they weren't alive long after they were taken by these terrorists. And so the question is, why the 18 days of everyone in complete darkness, of the families not sure what happened, but look what happened. It united an entire, I wouldn't even say country, a whole nation, from America, Scottsdale, Arizona, Eretz Yisrael, Haredi, not Haredi, whoever it was.
Nepal, Australia, South Africa, South America. I can't tell you, it was beyond words.
Do you feel like, do you share that sentiment that those 18 days was that was a time to get Klal Yisrael closer together?
So the truth is, I'm very cautious about giving my interpretation to the way Hashem runs the world. At the time, I would walk in the street and a person would stop and say, "Oh, your children are tzaddikim. Because of them, we discovered the terror tunnels." There were over 30 terror tunnels discovered, and they were all prepared. Unfortunately, we used to say for a mega terror attack. They were prepared with motorcycles and IDF uniforms and tons of. And when we said at the time a mega terror attack, we couldn't even imagine what actually happened. It's like we got a 10-year, a 9.5-year of extra chaim, because that's exactly what was planned. But here again, I'm starting to sound like I know how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. It's not my league. It's out of my league totally. In the beginning of Masechet Brachot, there's a machloket between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Meir regarding what Moshe Rabbeinu asked from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And two of his requests have to do with the special relationship between Hashem and Am Yisrael. And the third is, teach me how you work. Explain to me how this world works. What's going on here? And, what Rabbi Yochanan, I think, said that Moshe received it. So Kadosh Baruch Hu showed him the complete picture, and now he understood. And again, if I'm not confusing the opinions, Rabbi Meir says, no, it's beyond your league. It's not for us to ask such questions. If you let me, I'll expand from this to another thing, and that is one of the major things that's experienced here in Israel as a break in the neshama is not only what happens to Am Yisrael, but the knowledge that human beings, our neighbors, are capable of atrocities beyond the imagination. This notion that, here and now, we should have remembered 70 some years ago, in Europe, but there's also, there are always, there are political stands and people hold different opinions, but to think that extent of pure cruelty, of pure evil exists in real human beings is truly, it's heartbreaking. We had expectations that people are somehow connected to their Tzedek Elokim. And I remember at the time, 9.5 years ago, Rav Adin Steinsaltz told me, when we daven and we say, Oseh Shalom uboreh et hakol, it's just politically correct. The original verse in Yeshayahu that says, Oseh Shalom uboreh ra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he makes peace and he's boreh ra. That's what Yeshayahu says. So I later learned that during those times of the kidnapping, he gave a whole shiur on that. And in that shiur, he expands and he said, Ohavei Hashem Tzin. It means, in order to love Hashem, you have to see the full picture. You can't pretend that there's no evil in the world. You can't look aside from you see only the Oseh Shalom and not realize there's also boreh ra. But your job in the world is to be soneh ra. And, in one of the last interviews that Rabbi Zaks gave, Rav Lord Jonathan Zaks, he said, my whole life people ask me about the problem of evil in the world, and I always ran away from that because who am I to say? We don't know. And these days, I think I discovered maybe not why there is evil in the world, but why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding the answer from us. Why we don't understand the question of evil in the world. And he said, it's because if we would see the full picture, maybe like Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, if we would see the full picture and we would understand, maybe we would soften up. Maybe we would make room in our world for such evil. And our job, our role in the world is to fight evil, to fight it, to make the light scare away the evil and the darkness. So today we're in a world of milchemet bnei or v'bnei choshet. It's light versus darkness. It's good versus evil, and this idea that I don't know how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, but I know what my role is. I know what our role of Am Yisrael is, and we have a clear understanding of that. To me, that something that gives clarity.
Wow.
We'll be right back to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. Hey, it's wintertime. If you're watching this, you see what I'm wearing right now. This is a sweater. Yes, it is. But I'm wearing my amazing Collars & Co. shirt right under it. And this is a short sleeve shirt. So it's not getting bunched up by the sleeve. I'm not overly warm under here. If you're one of those guys that gets too hot in the winter because everywhere you go, the heat is blasting, then this is a perfect shirt for you. So what you're going to do is head to collarsandco.com. And right now, I have a special promo code for you for 20% off your purchase. That is promo code MEANINGFUL for 20% off your purchase, anything over $150. These shirts are super comfortable. I love them. I wear it every Shabbos. I wear it during the week. And now that it's winter, it's sweater weather, this is the perfect shirt for you. I'm telling you, this is the prime time for Collars & Co. shirts. Look, I'm able to roll up the sleeves of my sweater. I don't have a long sleeve shirt. I have a short sleeve shirt, and it is super, super comfortable. And it looks like any other shirt. Collar is amazing, but it actually doesn't look like any other shirt. It looks a lot better because you went to collarsandco.com. Make sure to use promo code MEANINGFUL for 20% off any order over $150 at collarsandco.com.
I want to invite you to elaborate on something that I think is embedded in what you just said, but I think your life's experience has put you in a position to need to really integrate this work into your daily life. And that is the avodah of hating the evil, the oyavei Hashem sinura that you mentioned. And I think the Baal Tanya elaborates on one of the attributes of a tzaddik is one that loves Hashem and also hates evil. Uses that as the paradigm of a tzaddik. And it's a time where the evil, the embodiment of evil, is so on display in front of our eyes, and the unspeakable darkness that is being perpetuated by these embodiments of evil is so vividly on display, and our avodah of hating that ra and despising that evil it's laid out right in front of us. But I think the nuance that I'm inviting you to elaborate on is, how do we make sure that avodah of hating the evil, how do we make sure that it doesn't spill over into becoming hateful people and resentful people, and to stay oyavei Hashem while still being so hating of that evil?
Absolutely. You're fighting evil without becoming it is not a simple thing at all. Just on the Shabbat of Yom Tov, the first Yom Tov, we had a discussion in my family. I was taking, what in Israel is considered a leftist position that I was saying is it corrupts your soul to hate. It corrupts your soul to generalize. It corrupts it's wrong to hate a person just because of his ethnic, origin. And yes, there are Rishayim Arurim, but we have to be very, very careful. And it even went over to the deep responsibility the state of Israel has for its, Arab citizens. And we had this whole discussion. Then, just a few days later, I was like proven so wrong, supposedly. And yet I adhere to those ideas that, we believe that all human beings were created in Tzelem Elokim, that we owe them, everybody, respect and care. And if you're a sovereign, you're responsible for whoever's under your responsibility. In this case, we're lucky that, that's a very tragic, sad way of luck, but that you can't be confused. Okay. In this case, evil shows its face and so clearly. I think I heard, Ben Shapiro say, I'll never say a good word about the Nazis, but they at least try to hide their deeds. And Hamas is flaunting it. So evil doesn't even have a self-perception of what they did. So yes, I think we have to, first of all, we have to remain human and humane, and we have to remain Jewish, very, very Jewish. And Jewish is not about, superiority. It's about responsibility to be the light of the world and to hold morality towards the world. And part of morality these days is to clearly fight evil. And if evil now is Hamas and it's like ISIS and it's like Nazis, so Hamas has to be eradicated. But, if during that process we will lose our Jewish soul, that's a tragedy. That would be horrific. Okay. This is work. Okay. It's internal work. For years now, I've been teaching a piece written by Rav Tamir Granot, where he worked a lot about the theology of Shoah, different ideas, and he has a piece there talking where he stands in Majdanek, and across the fence there's Lublin, and there they're living a normal life, and everything's going on, and here, people are being slaughtered and burnt, and he stands there and he remembers this Agadita of should man be created. And the different midot and shamayim are arguing, he knows the chesed, he should create him, he's all lies, he shouldn't create, etc. There's this very famous argument of should life be created, human beings be created. And then he, in his mind, he goes back to Majdanek and he said, oy vey, now that heavenly court has the ultimate proof that man shouldn't be created. And he continues to say, in his mind, okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu approaches the Kadosh Baruch Hu and begs that, maybe give us a second chance. And Hashem says, well, all arguments are off, only if you have proof. And he says, 2-3 years later, we got a chance here to be sovereign in Eretz Israel. And for the first time in history, It's not about being weak and tzaddik or powerful and rasha. It's about being powerful and tzaddik. And could we stand this test? Could we be the proof that that not the Am Yisrael, that Bnei Adam are capable of this? And it's all the years, it's about knowing how to be, Chesed V'Rachamim, with compassion. But these times, the test of being powerful and righteous is the test of fighting evil. And fighting it without becoming evil, which is a huge test.
Wow. As you're illustrating that so beautifully, it's reminding me of something. I think I may have mentioned a part of this in a different conversation, but specifically when Yaakov Avinu has his epic battle with the Sitra Achra, with the Yetzer Hara, with the Sar Shel Esav, and they battle all night until finally in the morning, Yaakov conquers evil. And when one conquers something, that thing becomes part of that which conquers it. That's the nature of conquest. And when Yaakov conquered the Satan, so that's when he got his name Yisrael. That's when Yaakov became Yisrael. That's when the nation of Am Yisrael was born. And Yisrael is the gematria of Satan plus Yaakov, because it took it over. And of course, as you mentioned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only Borei Ra, but it's Borei HaKol. And when the Ra is consumed in the infinite godly light, when it becomes part of that Einoin Milvadei Mamish, and it evaporates, Kula Ke'ashan Tichle, when it becomes completely evaporated and gone, that is when Am Yisrael is Chai. That is when we are born. That is when we are most alive.
Connect to what you said. You were talking about Yaakov fighting with Saro Shel Esav, and in the end there, he says, "Let me go, ki ala shachar," right? I live in the nighttime, and now that it's gonna be dawn, you have to let me go. And Yaakov says, "I won't let you go until you bless me. Until from this night, from this darkness, from this hardship, you will leave me with a blessing." And I think that's the resilience and the power that we find in people, in communities, in families, and in all of Am Yisrael time after time. It's dark, it's horrendous, it's terrible, and we're not mevatim be'isurim. We don't take suffering lightly. Okay, we give it a proper. We don't even run away to saying, "Oh, wow, and look at Am Yisrael, they're so wonderful. Look how they're coming together." That's all true. Am Yisrael is unbelievable, but we're not going there in order to avoid the pain. Okay, we're not mevatim be'isurim. We don't take suffering lightly. We don't even run away to the place where we're all so excited about the unity that's coming up, and then everybody's helping, and so many amazing things are happening. That's all true. Am Yisrael is unbelievable, but we're not going to run there to look away from the pain. There's tremendous amounts of grief and pain now, except experience shows that our true resilience is that we grow out of these things with different kinds of blessings. Not the kind of blessing that you ask for yourself. You're never ahead of time willing to pay these prices, but definitely we're not going to let Saro Shel Esav leave before it leaves us with blessings. I'll even take it one step further. In the beginning of the week, we were all asking, how can we say Hallel? Everybody is such terrible pain. Like everybody feels like it's one huge shiva house. How do we say Hallel? They're actually minagim that Avalim don't say, or in halachot that minagim that Avalim don't say Hallel. And then we were saying, mina mitzar karati ya'anani b'merchav. Yeah, that's what we say in Hallel. When you listen to the pesukim of Hallel, we hear a lot of pain, a lot of isurim, a lot of danger of death, and Hallel comes out of those places. And the narrower and more painful the place you call out to Hashem from, the wider the horizon that Hashem eventually shows you. It's even from the pasuk in Tehillim, Batzar hirchavta li. Rav Nachman Breslov says, שאפילו בתוך הצרה בתוכה עשית לי הרחבה בתוכה. That means in the narrow place, there are certain kinds of grace and chesed that you don't find anywhere else. Now you can't go over to a person and say, look at your troubles, they're okay, there's special chesed there. Never. But a person within their terrible, harsh experiences, they find chesed that doesn't exist anywhere else. And I think it's true for Klal Yisrael too.
One more time for you. We'll be right back to this episode of the Meaningful People podcast. But first, a word from our friends at Town Appliance. Ever since 1979, the company that's been absolutely the number one company when it comes to appliances is Town Appliance. They understand the needs of the Jewish market, of the frum market. They know what you need. They know how you need it. They know when you need it. And that's why you're going to go ahead and reach out to Town Appliance. They have 3 amazing locations. They have one in Baltimore. They have one in Lakewood. They have one in the 5 towns. So make sure you either walk into one of the locations or you get to townappliance.com. More than that, you can send them a message on WhatsApp. How awesome is that? You can WhatsApp your appliance store. Need a new fridge, new oven, vacuum cleaner, something for outdoor, a barbecue, dishwasher, laundry. Yeah, they have free nationwide shipping. You hear that? Free nationwide shipping. So you're going to head to townappliance.com or you can message them on WhatsApp. I'll put both those links in the description in the show notes of this episode. You have a question? How much is this going to cost me? I really want to do this, but I want to go ahead and head to townappliance.com. Now back to this episode. I just want to ask you in regards to, you mentioned there's F-16s flying over your head now. There obviously is a war that is going on. And, you are probably going to a lot of shiva houses, meeting a lot of people. And I'm wondering what is some of the words that you're giving over to maybe families who don't know where their loved ones yet are, to families who have lost loved ones. You mentioned the entire country is one big shiva house. What from your perspective and what are you giving over?
The truth is, mostly you come to such places with the utmost amount of humbleness and humility that you could take with you, because there's no right way of doing this, and there are no fit-all answers. And it's not like you can really, with your words, feel what is going on. But in general, I think it's a little bit dangerous to offer answers too quickly. We have to have anava in those places. And if you want to offer something, and this is true not only in extreme situations like now, but if you want to offer something, you offer, look, try this on, like trying on a piece of clothing. It worked for me. It gave me some, comfort of it. It's not this idea. Okay. And you offer things very, very delicately. You don't come in with, your ideas about what they should feel and think and experience. What works for me is, first of all, in Israel, there's a lot of, when you walk into a house where a tragedy happens, someone would put a hand on your shoulder, look you in the eye and say, Tiyu chazakim, be strong. And I, find a way to come around and kind of quietly shout, Tiyu gmishim. Okay. Strength is important. But more than that, it's about the flexibility. It's about the ability to contain gam vegam, to have room in your life for the sorrow, for the loss, for what you missed out on, for the grieving, and to have room in your life for the laughter, for the blessing, for the future blessing. Open yourself up to, it's not either or. There's an Israeli poet, Yehuda Amichai, that says, people have to try with the same eyes they laugh with, to collect the stones with the same hands they threw them. Kohelet wasn't right when he said there's a time for this and a time for that. Eventually, he said it in a poetic way. A person doesn't have time to have time for it. So this idea of personal flexibility, to me, is stronger than the idea of strength. And strength is important, okay? Beyond that, to me, and it's almost a mantra, anybody who wants, what works for me in difficult times is to think, I can feel pain. I don't have to become my pain. I can feel sorrow. I don't have to become my sorrow. In my inner landscape, there's so many more, so many more shades of dreams and disappointments and plans and, everything. It's not like taking a bucket of black paint and spilling it all over your life. So another metaphor for that would be, one could focus on their pain and it will easily fill up the frame, but they can use a wide lens. And in the wide lens, their dear one and their loss and their pain is still right there in the middle. And they're not betraying it and they're not forgetting it. It's there. It's not going anywhere. But with a wide lens, you experience your full life picture, your blessings, your other children, your so much more, your other opportunities. And I think it's a very, very useful tool. You can't give it whatever, there are points where it definitely, it's too early now. Now it's time for whoever lost, to grieve. But eventually these are extremely, useful, just coaches or tools. To me, I can't decide for anybody else.
Racheli, I want to invite you to model that widening of the lens. And I understand that Naftali is maybe one of multiple children that you've been blessed with.
Naftali is one of our 7 children.
Wow. How are your other children?
At the moment, we answer knukulam. People constantly say, "Oh, doesn't this, flood you with the past experience?" And the truth is, now it's very, very, very difficult. But it's very difficult because for all of us, it's very, very difficult. I don't think we're in a different place. Thank God they're growing up healthy, mostly happy. I think our main message was there's no proper way of doing this. And, if you feel like crying, go ahead. If you feel like laughing, that's fine. If there's any joy passing in the neighborhood, invite it in. And yeah, we are, 3 of our children are married now. My son is in the army. It's just like all of Am Yisrael here.
For sure. I love the experience that you offered in terms of how to be menachem people in their place of pain. And sometimes it's really not a matter of anything that can be said. There is nothing to say. And it's just to be there with them in their pain and to help shoulder the burden of their pain. And I think it might be a uniquely Jewish attribute where, I heard once, Goy Echad Ba'aretz, Klal Yisrael is referred to as a singular nation. We are one nation. Goy Echad, there's one Goy. But we know that all the nations of the world are Goyim as well. Our job is to be an Ar LaGoyim. So what do we mean that there's Goy Echad, that we're the only nation? So I heard beautifully once that each individual Goy onto him or herself is their own nation, and there isn't any thread that connects them necessarily one to another. But Goy Echad means that Knesset Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, is one with the Shechina. It's one with the Torah. There's an ichud. There's a singularity to Am Yisrael that makes us Goy Echad. It makes us one nation altogether. And when a person is in pain and another neshama is able to just sit there with them and connect as individuals, not through anything that they say, but just through who they are, that can sometimes achieve the biggest nechama of all.
The Medrash in Bachot says that in our tefillin it says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. What does it say in Hakadosh Baruch Hu's tefillin? The answer there that in Hakadosh Baruch Hu's tefillin it says become Chai Israel Goy Echad Ba'aretz. Hashem said, like, we turn him into one unit here on earth. It's reciprocal. I think people all over the world, and I'm talking about non-Jews, they know how to support people in times of pain. There are strong communities. There is a lot of goodwill. I think our culture, and it's part of Torah, etc., is a very family-oriented, community-oriented culture, Klal Yisrael culture. And first of all, it gives us the power to support. It also, when we're in machloket, and we know how to be in machloket, it makes it more severe and more painful, because under all of this, we're one. Okay, it's like the worst machlokot are in close families, right? When a fight. So yes, we have these unbelievable ways of support, and on the other hand, and this I'm talking from the last 9 months here in Eretz Israel. The division, the people were torn apart it was severe. It was to the extent where people were saying, "Ata lo ach sheli." Stop hugging me, saying, "Ach sheli, you're not my brother." Well, Shelky just said, the person that yells at you, "Ata lo ach sheli," only your brother would say that, right? Otherwise, what's the Havamina to experience that? But I'll say something that I think is not necessarily unique to Am Yisrael, but I think we have a special twist on it. In all of social study, like psychology and anthropology, etc., there's a great interest in hope. It turns out that people that get a high mark on the quality of hope, it's in correlation with a lot of amazing stuff. They're better students, they're better family members, they live longer, they're healthier, they're happier, etc. So there's a lot of research about hope. Is it a skill? Could you give it from one person to another, etc., etc. And the analysis there is that the hope has two components. One is this idea that there is a better horizon to aspire to. There is something like optimism. You can imagine getting eventually to a better place. And the other is the sense of agency. It's experiencing yourself as someone who has the power to take part in such processes. Okay, on a personal level, on a family level, on a community level, on an Am Yisrael level, on the humanity level. Okay, you're not just nobody that nobody counts and matters to nothing. You have the agency to take part. Now that's true. Chokmah v'goyim ta'amin. Okay, it's all over. For us, it's part of our whole view of life. Again, we mentioned Rabbi Dax. He said that Judaism is the voice of hope to the human discourse. Okay, he sees hope as a genuine Jewish quality that maybe through that went over to the Western world, as opposed to tragedy from the Greek, etc. And this idea that, and again, he differentiates between optimism and hope. Optimism is just this, is with, how Israelis say, yeah, beseder. It's like this a little bit passive way of saying, oh, don't worry, it's a little bit irresponsible, because optimism is a positive, it's a passive quality. You think you're going to, but things will be okay. Hope takes courage. Hope takes vulnerability. It takes your determination. It means together, if we work, if we invest, if we cooperate, if we unite, we can all bring ourselves to a better place. And those are exactly the same two components. It's being, imagining Geulah, or even on a very personal level, imagining a better future, and feeling that together we can bring ourselves there. If we work hard, if we're active, if we're courageous, so, and just on top of that, if you notice the verb, tikva, okay, kiviti Hashem kivta nafshi, kavel Hashem chazak v'imati yildecha v'kavel Hashem. First of all, it's very close to the verb of, it actually means bitachon in a way. And the second is you'll notice that it is used in repetitive ways. Kiviti, kivta, kavela. And that is, first of all, because you hope, you turn to Hashem, you lean on Hashem, but you also have to work at replenishing your treasures of hope, your, like, whatever, recharging your hope. Okay? It's a personal avodah that needs attention. Okay? And it happens in two levels: imagining a better future and experiencing yourself as someone that could practically take part in that. And it starts from the tiniest thing. It starts from experience, small victories for people that are in a very low place. They manage to get up. They manage to say modani. Big deal. Really tremendous deal. And you manage to send energy to someone out there. You manage to send a letter. You manage to pray for someone. A tremendous victory. It's strengthening ourselves with that. And on top of that, one more thing. Recently I was in a funeral, and I saw there the rabbi from the Kochaim, the Rosh Yeshiva of our boys, of Naftali and Gilad. Eyal was older. And over the years, I've always been asking myself, how does he do this? Because over the years, as a teacher, he experienced many losses from the yeshiva. And yet he keeps such an open heart, such an ability to love, to connect, to really be caring. And at the Levaya, I was noticing him, and walking out, I sent him a message. Harav, this time I caught you, red-handed. I saw how you do this. All these years I'm asking how you walk around the world with a lev shavur and don't become all, cut and protect yourself with walls that block your heart from the world to avoid so much pain. And I saw what you did. Throughout the Levaya, you were looking around and you saw this guy, he needs another hug, and this guy needs a good word, and this guy, and you put yourself constantly busy with the people around you, noticing them and giving them what you need. I said, wow, it's so banal, it's so simple, but now I understand. And he answered me, yeah, what do you, Rabbi Nachman said on the pasuk, ונתן לך רחמים ברחמך, that when you want the mercy of God, it's when you care about others, when you have rachamim for others, when you notice, when you have compassion, you get rachamim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? That's the way these things work. It's one of the major ways, first of all, to do something good, because it means so much to the people that receive, but also strengthening yourself and experiencing yourself as someone who's capable to take part in this thing. Do you let me add more things?
Yeah, I want to interject really quick something that you mentioned, and to just highlight. I love the responsibility that you empower people to have with their hope. So it's not just this passive experience of, throw my hands up, but there's a role that we participate in the tikva. It's what came to mind was the distinction in the articulation of Bob Marley, who says every little thing will be all right, like it'll just be all right, versus Rabbi Nachman, who says Ein Shum Yush, and he says Im ata ma'amin she'efshar lekalkel, vadai she'efshar letaken. But efshar letaken means that you need to do the tikkun. You have to have the hope and know that you play a role in the tikkun.
Absolutely. So in response to what you just said, okay, on Monday night we were in the funeral of Amitai Tzvi Granot, the son of Tamir Granot that I mentioned before, And his mother, Avivit, was eulogizing. And then she said, we are in endless pain, but don't be sad. Al tiyu atzuvim. Atzvut ze shorosh hayush. Sadness is the root of despair. Ve'en shum yush ba'olam klal. Okay? And, that thing needs translation. Because what do you mean we are experiencing endless pain, but don't be sad? How exactly is that supposed to work? And in one of the most famous passages of Reb Nachman, he says, Lev shavur v'atzvut, it's not the same thing. Being heartbroken, being vulnerable and holding the pain, experiencing it, sometimes that's the point you're at. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, covers with love and with mercy. But atzvut, in other words, depression, that's a poison. Despair, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu soneh. That's what Reb Nachman says, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates it. And he says, if, maybe we should all be walking around with lev shavur, with our hearts on our sleeves. But people like us, we might get to sadness from that. It's not, maybe we should spend 1 hour a day, maybe, the lev shavur. The rest of the time we have to work on our simcha. But it's exactly what you just said. We spoke about the way we can be meaningful to other people. And I want to add one more perspective to it. A few years ago, I was, my job sent me to Florida, and we were working all day. And, we took a break. We went to a kosher restaurant. So we were a bunch of people. We were eating, and when we came to pay, the cashier person said, "Oh, somebody already picked up your bill." And the truth is, I felt, it was very clear what happened. It might have been 4 years after the event, but someone, a good-hearted Jew, saw me, recognized me, his heart opened, and he wanted to do something. So he went over and, like in the movies, he said, "That table, the bill's on me." And I stood there and I felt horrible. What, can't I pay my own check? What's and then a very wise woman I was working with, Harriet, she turns to me and she said, "Racheli, never feel bad when you're a vessel for another person to bring out the best in themselves. Okay? Never feel bad when you're a way for another person to bring out the best of themselves." And to me, it was a huge lesson, because people say, "Oh, we should always be zoche, to be from the givers." But life doesn't work. Sometimes you give, sometimes you receive. We're all bound together. So sometimes the greatest gift you can give a person is being open to receive from them. And sometimes you grow better through someone else. Sometimes they grow better, or they express their goodness through you. So that's also a role a person should be open to accept.
That's stunning.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy, and thank you so much for giving us your time today, for telling us your story, and for giving really strong call to action for everybody who's listening to this in Israel and America. I would tell you, give last words of chizuk to everyone in America, but I think you did. I think you said everything that people could be feeling and should be doing. So I really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and you should continue to be mechazik, and only simchas, only brachas.
The chizuk it exists within Am Yisrael. It exists in every individual, and every family, and every community. It's just about letting it express it ourselves. Sometimes we feel that in times like this, we should become small and turn our head down and turn inwards. It's about finding our power. That's our resilience. Finding our power that exists and expressing it.
Thank you so much, Racheli. Thank you so much for empowering us with such hope and for spreading such light. And may we join you, B'karav Mamish, B'meir V'yameinu, in the Holy Land, with the light of Mashiach.
Amen. בשורות טובות, ישועות, נחמות וניצחונות.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Amen ve'amen.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Got all the way through to this point. Please leave a comment on YouTube. Show your support for Rachelle Fraenkel being vulnerable and telling this story. You know what? Let us know if you remember this time in history. It's really not that long ago, 2014. Let us know if you remember this time, if you yourself are davening for the return of those boys. And obviously we're going through, a really, really challenging period of time right now. I know that it's hitting everybody in a different way. But all we could do is daven, make sure to use the Tehillim podcast for Meaningful Minute. You can go on Apple, Spotify, if you're listening to this on there right now, and search Tehillim by Meaningful Minute. We have all 150 chapters recorded right there. You're driving in your car, you can be reciting literally the entire Tehillim in a week worth of commute. So do that. Do it for the soldiers. Do it for Am Yisrael. I want to mention that we also have a number of links in the show notes in the description of this episode that are organizations that you can help in Israel. These are not paid ads. These are us putting links that you can help organizations in Israel that need your help right now financially. So please, if you have the ability to do that, please hit those links and help them out. And once again, if you can share this episode with a friend, it sure does mean a lot. Join the Meaningful People Podcast WhatsApp channel. It's a brand new channel. We have almost 700 members there. We have exclusive content. Most of our news of which guests we're having on or some behind the scenes stuff breaks on there only. I don't think we say it anywhere else. So make sure to join the WhatsApp channel for Meaningful People Podcast. The link is also in the show notes and description. Thank you so much for listening. And hopefully, this is the last episode before Mashiach. See you all in JLM. Adios, amigos.